Could you possibly be the jerk for calling your husband selfish solely for eating a bowl of cereal? We'll get into that in a bit, but first, am I the jerk for making my lesbian daughter's children blankets? Basically, I, 52-year-old female, have 3 daughters, Anne, 30, Carrie, 26, and Jane, 20, all fake names. When all my girls turned 18, I made them a special blanket. I then made 3 swaddle blankets out of the same materials for their future children. Carrie told me not to because she didn't want kids. I found out later it was because she was a lesbian. I said okay, but made them just in case. Earlier this year, Carrie married her lovely wife Rory, 28-year-old female. Her amazing daughter Diane, 5-year-old female, is my 3rd grandchild. I approached Rory and asked if I could give her one of the blankets I made for Carrie's kids, or if she wanted me to make one special for her out of the materials I used to make their wedding living room blanket. I always give these out on the day they're born, so for Diane, I plan on giving it on her birthday and was explaining that to her. She told me to ask Diane. I did, and Carrie overheard. I found out that she's pregnant because she was crying and yelling that I didn't respect her wishes, so how can she trust me with her baby? I'm just so confused and hurt. I was trying to do something nice for all my girls and then my sweet Diane. Instead of being happy, I was cautious. Carrie is threatening to go low contact because I don't respect her, and I'm obviously homophobic because how else would I have thought she'd get pregnant, which is very confusing. Rory's telling me it's hormones and that Carrie's emotional because of how hard it was to get pregnant. I didn't know they'd been trying, and that she's afraid she's going to lose it. Am I the jerk? I was trying to be kind. I wasn't being homophobic or trying to be disrespectful. Personally, I don't think OP's the jerk here. I think what they did was a very thoughtful thing, honestly, and it was something that was done in confidence by themselves that if it was just never applicable, it would have never been brought out. I mean, in this very situation, when Diane came into the picture, those blankets that OP made were perfectly in place for that. I genuinely do believe this isn't like a homophobic or judgmental or, oh, they'll change their mind and they'll definitely have kids someday kind of thing. It's just you never know what the future might hold. I think it's actually pretty thoughtful that OP went out of their way to make that in advance and had it ready. LawFox32 commented, "Not the jerk and I'm a lesbian. If I'm reading this right, you didn't even know that was why she said she didn't want kids at the time you made the blanket. Plus, I am obviously homophobic because how else would I have thought she'd get pregnant makes 0 sense. Presumably you were aware that sperm donation existed." OP responded saying, "That's right. I found out about 3 years ago when she began dating Rory. I made them years before that, and also yes, even when I found out she was a lesbian, there were so many ways for someone to have a baby, including adoption. We had a heart-to-heart when she came out, and that's why she said that she didn't want kids because she never planned on getting married. We live in a conservative area, so it's hard for her sometimes, so she never thought she would have them. Also, hi, I'm Steven, and if you guys enjoy getting to decide whether or not all of these people are jerks, why not hit those like and subscribe buttons down below? That said, our next story is, am I the jerk for refusing to let my brother bring his girlfriend to Thanksgiving after she disrespected my wife? I, 31-year-old male, am married to Lily, 30-year-old female. My brother Josh, 29, recently started dating Lindsay, 27-year-old female, and while she's been polite at family events, Lily feels Lindsay has made some passive-aggressive comments. For example, at a recent barbecue, Lindsay said it was selfish that Lily and I weren't planning to have kids anytime soon. Lily felt uncomfortable, but I didn't say anything at the time. Another incident happened at a family dinner when Lindsay remarked, "I'm surprised you two are so happy without kids. You must be really good at being selfish." Lily was hurt by that comment, and it made her feel like Lindsay was judging her life choices. Most recently, at a birthday party, Lindsay made a comment about Lily's career saying, "It's cute that you're working part-time with no kids while Josh and I are really focusing on our careers." Lily was annoyed but didn't say anything because she didn't want to start drama. Thanksgiving is at our house this year, and when Josh asked if he could bring Lindsay, I told him I'd prefer if she didn't come. I explained that some of her comments had made Lily feel disrespected, and I didn't want that to ruin the holiday. Josh got upset and said I was being petty. He argued that I was overreacting and that Lindsay was just being honest, but I stood my ground. Now Josh says he won't come if Lindsay isn't invited, and my parents are caught in the middle. My mom thinks I'm being too harsh, but I feel like I'm just standing up for my wife. Am I the jerk for refusing to let my brother bring his girlfriend to Thanksgiving? If you're the one hosting it and you don't want this person here because they're particularly unpleasant and it's probably most likely going to ruin the holiday if they are there just because of what they do and what they say, how could you be the jerk for refusing to let them come over to your place? Fourth Chakra commented, "You're awesome for standing up for your wife. I read a lot of these sorts of stories and the significant other often stands off to the side, letting their spouse fend for themselves. He argued that I was overreacting and that Lindsay was just being honest. So your brother defended Lindsay rather than saying, she was badgering Lily with her opinion. I'll go talk to her. I'm sorry my girlfriend treated her that way. Now Josh says he won't come if Lindsay isn't invited. That's his choice. But it is your home and you and Lily are entitled to not be subject to the harassment of someone with an agenda. She is your wife and you're standing up for her. Good for you. Hopefully your mom understands that eventually. Not the jerk." This next story is, am I the jerk for calling out my mother-in-law and telling her she's not Native American? Okay, for context, my wife and her mother really could pass as part Native American. They have dark brown hair, almond eyes, and high cheekbones. They're white but hold a tan real well and they both tan often, giving them a darker complexion. When my wife and I met, she told me she was part Cherokee and I honestly believed her because she could for sure pass the part look-wise. She's been asking me for years to get DNA kits so we could learn more about our heritage. I was always told I was mainly white and part Mexican. My wife was always told she was 10 to 20% Native American and white. We ordered some DNA tests about 2 years ago. My DNA test came back how I expected it to. I'm mainly Irish, German, French, and about 10% Mexican. My wife's DNA test comes back and it says she's 99.9% European, mostly Irish. At first, we both thought this was a mistake, so we ordered a 23andMe DNA test to get more in-depth results. So we ordered the more expensive test and I get the same result and lo and behold, so does my wife. My wife is a 99.9% colonizer. My wife got really upset because her family has told them for generations they are part Cherokee and their ancestor was Nancy Ward. Given these test results, it's impossible for that to be true. My mother-in-law is the type of woman to post on Facebook a lot, and of course, she always makes posts about how she's Indian and her ancestor is Nancy Ward. I find it very annoying now that I know it isn't true. I was talking to my mother-in-law the other day about the DNA test results and how she needs to take one so she can see for herself she's not Native American. And of course, she gets really mad at me. She tells me she knows who her people are and doesn't need a DNA test to confirm it. I'm all about being proud of who you are, but it also upsets me to see people claim to be something they aren't. I told my wife I wanted her to get a DNA test for Christmas. My wife tells me no and that it's only going to upset her and I need to drop it, but honestly it irks the heck out of me to see her mother constantly talk about her Indian heritage and claiming to be an oppressed group of people when she isn't. So I'm just curious, am I the jerk for calling out my mother-in-law? I really want her to get a 23andMe for Christmas, but my wife thinks I should just drop it. So personally, I feel a little bit of both sides because I completely understand OP being annoyed and wanting to call them out and put them on blast for saying, oh, I'm this, and these are my ancestors and I feel so connected, and you know it's BS. But at the same time, ultimately, is it actually hurting anybody? Is it misrepresentation? Sure, but what harm is it actually doing? The wife might just have a point, just let it go and let it be. Flickeneld commented, so I googled Nancy Ward and it's safe to say that woman stopped procreating 250 years ago. That's more than 10 generations. Now, obviously DNA is a fickle thing and does not get divided perfectly evenly between parents. However, over more than 10 generations, I'd think we could safely assume the percentages even out fairly reasonably, assuming that your girlfriend was descended from one of the full-blood children of Nancy Ward, and that person was their only full-blood native ancestor and splitting genes roughly evenly over 10 plus generations, you end up with a percentage of native blood that is less than 0.1%. So your girlfriend's mother may very well be telling the truth about her native ancestry. But at more than 10 generations distant, she's likely more closely related to King Charles at this point, and definitely more closely related to Kevin Bacon. Our next story is, am I the jerk for refusing to share a table in a crowded coffee shop with another patron because she smelled bad? I, 22-year-old female, was studying at a popular coffee shop in my town yesterday afternoon. It was crowded, but I was lucky enough to get a 2-person table with an outlet. I stayed there for maybe 3 hours and ordered multiple items throughout my stay. About an hour into my stay, a girl about my age who reeked of weed asked if she could share my table so she could study as well. I looked around and every other chair was occupied, and there were even people standing beside the tables. I absolutely despise the smell of weed. It's legal in my state, so there's no issues there, but it makes me nauseous and gives me a headache, so I knew there was no way I would get anything done with that girl across from me. Without mentioning her smell, I told her no and that I needed my personal space. Instead of walking away, she pressed and said that if I wanted my personal space, I shouldn't study in the most popular coffee shop in town. I then told her that I specifically didn't want her at my table because she smelled like a marijuana farm, and she should take a shower before she tries to infringe on strangers' personal space. I thought she would go away after that, but she told me that she was sitting at my table whether I liked it or not. She put her things down, maybe thinking I would leave. Instead, I flagged down an employee and explained the situation. She sided with me and asked the girl to leave, threatening to call security if she didn't do so. I resumed my work but felt a bit shaken by the situation. Later that evening, I recalled what happened to some of my friends. I thought that they would all agree that she was being the jerk, but to my surprise, a couple of my friends told me I was the unreasonable one. One of them is familiar with the coffee shop and told me that it was rude of me to hog a table, even though I bought 2 drinks and a pastry throughout my stay, and that if I really had a problem with someone smelling bad, I should have just left. Another one of my friends said that my comment about how that person smelled was out of line, and even if someone is being rude, I shouldn't talk like that to a stranger. This sparked a huge debate until I agreed to post on this sub to settle this once and for all. So, am I the jerk in this situation? I just think if somebody stinks, you completely are in the right to say, you stink and I don't want you sitting at this table in this restaurant. It kind of reminds me of the stupid flimsy ads that I saw in relation to things like voting on marijuana legalization. I would see ads on TV that have a police officer in uniform there saying, if this is passed, then I won't be able to stop somebody from smoking marijuana in a public place. Then it cuts to some pearl clutcher being like, what about our public restaurants? What about our places of leisure? It's like, newsflash, he couldn't smoke there in the first place. It's private property. The employee sided with OP. And Barrick26 commented, not the jerk. You were at the table first, and it was a small 2-person table. It's not like you were sitting by yourself at a big 4+ person table and not letting anyone else sit there. When my husband and I sit together at a 2-person table at a cafe, there's barely room for both of us plus our laptops. I can't imagine letting a stranger sit that up close and personal next to me, especially if they smelled bad. You could have offered her the chair, she could take it and sit somewhere else, but in my opinion, you politely declined and then she was the one who pushed it. Then you mentioned her smell. She deserved it at that point when she wouldn't accept no for an answer. Our next story is, am I the jerk for telling my daughter, 15, she's not autistic in front of her friends? My daughter is one of the most well-adjusted and socially adept people I have met. She's organized her own birthday parties, excelled at debate team in the feminist roundtable club at her school, where she organized a fundraiser for at-risk young women. I am beyond proud of her. She is an incredible person, and I truly feel the sky is the limit for her. However, she recently made a friend group who I believe is not great for her. 3 people. 2 are non-binary and 1 girl, and all of them claim to be autistic. I guess this is rubbed off on my daughter because now she's also claiming to be autistic. My sister is following her on TikTok and I guess she posts stimming videos and other things. She's given me 0 evidence before this point to even entertain the notion that she is. I truly never even considered it until she met these friends. This leads me to believe it is made up. I've noticed that these friends are causing her to distance herself from her other friends who encouraged a more healthy lifestyle. Friends she met in Feminist Roundtable, for example, who I really liked. She doesn't really do anything anymore but sit in her room and make videos with these friends about autism. It's really strange and has me feeling pretty bad. The other day, her and her friends were in the kitchen, and my daughter said something along the lines of, she wouldn't understand because she isn't autistic about a classmate. I calmly stated after she said this that she's not that either, has self-diagnosed, and shouldn't patronize people by claiming that she is autistic as it's inappropriate to people who actually struggle. She got furious and stomped up to her room. Her friends followed. She's not talking to me anymore. Am I the jerk for calling out my daughter? Besides, just the massive brain rot that's kind of occurring in general, this is kind of the thing I've seen people mention as far as TikTok and social media. Not even necessarily just about autism, but just all kinds of disorders, fears, really kind of anything under the sun, like from things like this to stuff about food and eating. How easy it is to be exposed to all of this kind of content, and all of a sudden, once you're kind of in that loop, the algorithm locks you into it and you just keep seeing this stuff. And when it comes to young, impressionable minds, it's not very surprising the outcome. I don't think OP's the jerk for pointing out how this is and how it looks. Bored of Bin commented, "Not the jerk for telling her that. However, I think that you should maybe take her to an expert and have her checked that will not just confirm what you're saying, but also give your daughter the assurance that her self-diagnosis was wrong and maybe ease her doubts. Worst comes to worst, if she does turn out to be one, you can then take appropriate steps to deal with it." ETA, to the people who are questioning the usage of a word like deal, it is not meant in a negative manner or to dismiss people who have autism. It's used to describe handling it, supporting or taking care of it. That's it, no controversial or ableist undertones to it. To the people who are questioning the usage of the expression worst comes to worst, nowhere in my comment am I dismissing her daughter being on the spectrum or treating it as something horrible or terrible. That was never the intention here. To the people who are autistic, this comment was in no way made to hurt you or treat you like a different species or with malicious intentions. This comment is only made for OP to offer her the advice or a solution to what she's going through. You can nitpick the words or expressions used in this comment or meaning of it to suit your own narrative. However, that doesn't change the fact that this comment was made only to give suggestions to OP, which she took. To all the people who upvoted this comment, thank you for seeing the real intention behind this comment. Our next story is, am I the jerk for teaching my daughter the importance of sleep? Just like any other kid, my 7-year-old daughter hates bedtime. If it's ever 9:59 and we tell her it's bedtime, then she will make a huge court case about how we're depriving her of 1 minute of her life. I always let it go, but this week, when I told her it's bedtime at 10:05, she protested. Essentially, she didn't understand why she had to go to bed while the rest of us adults stayed up later. It's unfair that we get to enjoy the rest of our night while she has to go to bed early. I mean, she's not wrong. It definitely makes more sense for me to go to bed early as well, since all of us wake up roughly around the same time, but I needed her to understand the consequence of the trade-off between sleep and early mornings. So I told her, okay, she can stay up as long as she wants. Heck, if we go to bed, she can keep watching TV all night till the next morning. Her eyes glimmered and she did her little victory dance before sitting on the sofa and enjoying her little win. My wife protested, saying that she'll be too tired for school tomorrow, and I said, that's the point. I went to bed and woke up at 7 a.m. Sure enough, my daughter slept on the sofa probably about 2 hours before I woke up. Understandably, getting her to wake up and get ready for school was a battle that neither of us enjoyed. I dropped her off at school and picked her up again after work. She was done with the day and slept in the car on the way home. Once we got home, she tried to go to bed, and I told her she can't because her swimming lesson is in an hour, so she needs to get ready for that. She cried, but I still forced her to go with her mom. She came back just barely able to make it through the day and tried making her way up the stairs again. I told her she forgot about her homework, and she started crying again. My wife said that we should let her sleep, but I was firm on my stance that if we let her off the hook right now, then she will never understand the consequences of her decision. Delaying responsibilities due to factors within your control isn't okay, and I don't want her learning that it is. I helped her with her homework, and by the time it was 8, she was already in bed. The next night when it was 10, she didn't even protest, just started walking up to her bedroom and declined when I asked her if she wanted to stay up with us. I thought the mission was a success, but my wife questioned my parenting technique and said it was borderline neglectful and manipulative. I disagreed, but after a few conversations with friends and family, I'm slowly starting to doubt myself. So Reddit, am I the jerk? Personally, I think I fully understand OP's intentions here. To be honest, if I were in OP's shoes, I feel like I would probably have let them go to bed before doing the homework. But to be fair, you want your kid to do your homework and you really do want to drive that lesson that you do need sleep. I just don't know if I would have the guts to make my kid keep crying when they've already cried earlier about how tired they are. I mean, she's 7 years old. Marmot Mountain commented, not the jerk at all. Although we have different parenting techniques, yours worked. I made my kids go to bed at 8 and yes, they had tantrums, but hey, that wore them out. As they got older, 9, 10, I made them a deal. They could stay up until 9 to watch Dragon Ball Z as long as there were no problems getting up and ready in the morning. If one of them was late or not ready in time the next morning, that night they went to bed at 8. It was interesting that at 6:30 a.m., I didn't have to yell. They yelled at each other. Problem solved. Our next story is, am I the jerk for telling my mother-in-law off while she was trying to correct my wife's parenting on the phone? I'm sure all of us parents out here have had the unsolicited parenting advice or criticism from many people. We all love it, right? No. My mother-in-law is notorious for giving advice when it's not solicited. My wife will never stand up to her mom and will end up breaking down after the call in my arms. I've heard it enough times where I'm starting to speak up. They talk almost every day on the phone, which is great. Where I draw the line is mother-in-law has her marriage, we have ours. Don't get into business that you don't want anyone getting into yours of. Mother-in-law loves to make comments on what we're doing wrong or what she did in cases where it's not asked for and not wanted. This morning, they were FaceTiming and she was critical of my wife not being stern enough with our daughter. I heard it but was trying to keep the peace and was doing something, so I kept quiet. Minutes later with me in the room, she mentioned that we need to get her on a schedule and that we are freaking her up. We have a schedule. It's the weekend. We spent 30 minutes in bed with our daughter on a Sunday. Really freaking her up, right? While they were FaceTiming, our daughter was hungry and a little fussy, so that's where the comment came in. I lost it then. I said out loud, "If I wouldn't have known, we're babysitting her child. I didn't know she had another kid." To my wife's bewilderment and her jaw down, she couldn't believe I said that. All I heard from their FaceTime is, "I have to go." Click, as she scowled at my wife. Wife isn't upset at me because she knows her mom was in the wrong, but said I was a jerk. Am I the jerk for essentially telling my mother-in-law she is too involved in our child's upbringing? Summarized. Side note, my wife just had a conversation with her brother this week and they talked about how freaked up their childhood was. Both reflected and agreed their parents did a lot they shouldn't have and messed them up. After mother-in-law hung up, I said in a manner referencing her conversation, "If she did such a bad job raising y'all, why am I going to listen to her with our child?" Wife just laughed and said, "Yeah, I know." I don't think OP's the jerk. Some people just don't understand when they're inserting themselves too far or saying too much until they just kind of get this water in the face rude awakening. I'd say just be glad that all they said was, "I have to go," click. Could have been a lot more not desired yapping continuing on instead. Individual ad 9213 commented, "Not the jerk. It sounds like your wife has been so gaslit by her mom that she can't or won't stand up for herself. Of course, you get to hear the results of her mother's non-stop criticism, which is unfair to both of you. The solution, if there is one, is for your wife to tell her mother that whenever she, your mother-in-law, starts criticizing your child-rearing practices, she, your wife, will end the conversation right then and there. From then on, the moment mother-in-law says anything other than how wonderful her grandchild is, your wife just ends the call. Same as mother-in-law did when you spoke up. Good luck with that though. Our next story is, am I the jerk for calling my husband selfish for eating a massive bowl of cereal? Throwaway because this feels so ridiculously petty I can't believe I'm asking it. Our kid, 6, has a favorite cereal, which is a branded chocolate hoop cereal. When full price, it is 100% out of our budget, and so we're almost never able to buy it, and we buy her the cheap own brand alternative, which she likes but isn't anywhere near as good, but when it's 3 times cheaper, you make do. We went shopping a few weeks ago, and to my happiness, they had 2 boxes of her preferred brand massively reduced to clear, making them cheaper than the own brand. So I bought them. She was thrilled. We've been gradually getting through it. I try to limit how much sugary cereal she has anyway, so generally she'll have a bowl of Shreddies or Bran Flakes or similar and put the chocolate cereal on top. She's happy to do this because it makes the cereal last longer. We just opened the second box a couple of days ago. Well, this morning, my husband joined us for breakfast. Normally he wakes up before us and so has already eaten before we wake up. He then poured himself a huge bowl full of the chocolate cereal. I was stunned and immediately asked him what he was doing and was he seriously eating that much. Here is where I'm probably the jerk. I shouldn't have commented in front of our kid, but he took me by surprise and I wasn't thinking. He shrugged and said, yeah, that it was a normal amount of cereal to eat. He'd run out of his cereal and it wasn't a big deal. He also said that he'd done the exact same thing yesterday. Having checked, I would estimate he's had at least 1/3 of the entire box over those 2 bowls. I got annoyed and said that was unreasonable and kind of selfish, While he has every right to eat as much food as he wants and has every right to eat whichever cereal he wants, I think having a huge bowl of expensive cereal which was bought as a treat for our daughter is completely unreasonable. I asked him why on earth he couldn't have mixed it with cheap cereal to bulk out his bowl because this particular cereal is unaffordable usually. He made a comment about the box being gotten on offer, so it wasn't expensive. And when I argued that wasn't the point, that buying another box of it would be expensive, he said, then we just won't buy another box. Our kid got upset, and then my husband snapped at me for saying anything in front of her, that it was my fault our kid was upset, and said that I had now ruined his day. He sulkily ate his gigantic bowl and then stormed off to our room in a huff. He also said that he earns most of our money so he can eat what he wants. Yes, he earns more, but we have an agreed upon food budget. If he wants to buy expensive cereal with his own money, then he can be my guest, but he spends his money on other things, and this cereal came out of our family food budget. Am I the jerk for calling him out for eating so much? OP's not the jerk. Could they have done it in a better setting? Sure, probably. The kid maybe wouldn't have gotten so upset, but it's an understandable thing for OP to kind of die on the hill of. Not gonna lie, I actually kind of find it sort of sad that the dad doesn't recognize this is something so easily special you can keep together for your kid. Him going to almost the stereotypical bad dad trope of, oh great, you upset the kid, by the way, I make all the money and put the food on the table, so it shouldn't matter what I do or don't do. I mean, if I were OP, I feel like that may actually, at my core, affect how I view that person. A strange peg commented, not the jerk but his iron more, and the implied so freak you and my daughter sure makes him a jerk in my book. When money is tight or just needs to be budgeted, good parents often make do with less to ensure their growing kids' needs and occasional wants are met. Many people can tell you as they got older, they realized their parents had been letting their kids eat most of the meatballs and drink the milk while they lived off of the pasta and plain water. In my honest opinion, your husband should be ashamed of himself. Our next story is, am I the jerk for cursing at my partner for pressuring me to buy a TV? I, 23-year-old female, started dating this guy, 20-year-old male, a few months ago. It's been 2 months since we became official and things have been going really well. This is not a BF diss track. We usually hang out at my place since he lives with his parents, and he noticed that I don't own a TV and finds it weird. Now, I've been living by myself for years and I've never owned one simply because I never felt like I needed one. Everything I like to do in my free time, I can do it on my laptop. My parents own a TV, but I never ever use theirs when I visit them. It's just not my thing. I have one bed, one couch, and one beanbag. He bought it for me in my apartment, and that's it. No chair, no additional lights. I use candles. No TV or gadgets. No thank you. He's been suggesting me to buy a TV for a while, saying that it'll be nice to be able to watch something and have something to talk about. He's a gamer and said he could bring his game consoles so we could play some video games together. He said that people would find it odd that I don't own a TV if I invite them over, since everyone owns one. I don't agree with any of the points he made. We can watch shows on my laptop. A bigger screen would be better. That's what he said. I think not. The video game thing, that's mainly what he wants to do, as I'm not a gamer myself. The last point, I find it most outrageous because who cares what others think? I don't even like to invite people over in general, and if I do, and if they have issues with me not owning a TV, they can pack and leave. It's my apartment. I have no obligation to cater to anyone else besides me. I've made it clear to him that I'm not getting a TV, and he keeps being persistent, and one day when I had enough of him pressuring me to buy something I don't want, I cursed at him. I told him that he's being a freaking jerk, and if he wants a TV in my apartment that much, he can buy me one and set that up all by himself. He has a tendency to be bossy or gives me lots of advice, and it usually doesn't bother me, and I even appreciate it sometimes. I can be spacey and reckless because I know that he means well, but some of the suggestions he makes, I find it off-putting, like this TV thing, or him telling me to buy more utensils. I have one pair of fork and knife, no spoon. I eat out 5 to 6 days of the week. He seemed really hurt when I cursed him out, and now I feel like maybe I could have been less mean. He comes over to my apartment about once a week if any of y'all are curious. So, I mean, I completely respect the minimalist life. You don't want to go out and buy anything you don't need or you're not really going to use. I respect that. But did OP actually make sure to clarify in the story they have one fork, one knife, and no spoon? And that for food they eat out 5 to 6 days a week? With the price of food nowadays, no wonder they don't have a TV or any other utensils. Memester Me commented, Okay, so besides the one set of utensils, no one finds it weird that her primary source of light is candles? How can she see when she's churning butter? But with that being said, that's all the time we have for today. Now, if you want to hear another absolutely crazy Am I the Jerk Here story, check out that video on the left. Or if you missed my latest video, check out that video on the right. That said, I'll see you all next time with some more stories.